Where did you get this? My grandfather left it to me. Daniel studied the documents for another moment. Then he looked toward Karen. Ma'am, did you say this property belongs to the HOA? Yes, Karen answered confidently. Daniel shook his head. No, it doesn't. Karen's expression changed immediately. What? Daniel unfolded the large property survey. He pointed toward the boundaries. This entire area is private property. Karen stepped closer. She stared at the map, and that's when she realized something she clearly hadn't expected. The property wasn't just a cabin. My grandfather had owned thousands of acres surrounding the area, and some of the roads and access areas that the HOA had been treating as community property actually crossed land controlled by my family's trust. Karen's face went completely pale. For years, she had acted like she controlled everyone around her, but now she was discovering that the land she had been trying to control didn't belong to her. Daniel looked at her and said, Ma'am, Ethan Carter is not trespassing. He pointed toward the cabin. This is private property. Karen didn't respond. She just stood there holding her handbag, staring at the survey. For the first time, she had nothing to say. But the story didn't end there. A few days later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Karen apparently believed she could still control the situation. She told the homeowners that I was causing problems and refusing to cooperate with the community. So I decided to attend. I brought the original deeds. I brought the county surveys. And I brought the official property records. When I placed them on the table, the entire room became quiet. One homeowner picked up the survey. Another asked Daniel about the property boundaries. Then people started talking. One homeowner said Karen had threatened him over a driveway that wasn't even HOA property. Another said she had demanded that he remove a fence from land he legally owned. Suddenly, the meeting wasn't about me anymore. It was about Karen. People who had been afraid to challenge her finally started speaking. By the end of the meeting, Karen had lost the support of the homeowners. She was eventually removed from her position as HOA president. The woman who had called 911 because I refused to leave my own cabin had finally learned the lesson she had ignored for years. The HOA couldn't control everything, and Karen certainly couldn't control property she didn't own. Today, I still wake up in my grandfather's cabin. I still walk down to the lake in the morning. I still see the same pine trees and mountains he loved. And sometimes, when I stand on the porch at sunset, I remember his final advice. Never let anyone bully you into giving up something that belongs to you. Karen thought she could force me out of my own cabin. She thought the HOA gave her power over me. Then she called 911. Unfortunately for her, the sheriff arrived with the property records. And those records proved one thing. She wasn't standing on HOA property. She was standing on mine. So the next time someone tries to control your property, remember this. Before you make the rules, make sure you actually own the land. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more satisfying HOA stories and incredible American justice stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. I thought spending the weekend at my grandfather's cabin would be peaceful. The fresh mountain air, the quiet lake, and the sound of pine trees moving in the wind were exactly what I needed. But I had no idea that an HOA Karen was about to call 911 because I refused to leave my own property. My name is Ethan Carter. For most of my life, this cabin had belonged to my grandfather, Robert Carter. He had spent decades building and protecting the property in the mountains of Colorado. It wasn't a fancy vacation home. It was a simple wooden cabin surrounded by pine trees, a private lake, and hundreds of acres of beautiful land. When I was a kid, I spent almost every summer here with my grandfather. He taught me how to fish, how to repair fences, and how to respect the land. Before he passed away, he gave me one final piece of advice. Never let anyone bully you into giving up something that belongs to you. I never imagined how important those words would become. A few years earlier, a wealthy neighborhood called Cedar Ridge Estates had been built near the property, and with the neighborhood came an HOA. The president of that HOA was a woman named Karen Mitchell. Karen believed the HOA rules applied to everyone around her. She complained about my fence. She complained about my driveway. She complained about the trees near my property. And eventually, she even complained about my cabin. One Saturday morning, Karen arrived at my property carrying her black handbag and wearing her usual burgundy blazer. She walked toward me with a serious expression. "You need to leave," she said. I honestly thought I had misheard her. "Excuse me? This property is inside the Cedar Ridge community area," she said. "The HOA has decided that the cabin needs to be brought under community control." I looked at her for a moment. Then I laughed. "Karen, this is an HOA property." She didn't appreciate that answer. She told me that I was violating community rules and that I needed to leave until the matter was resolved. I calmly told her that I wasn't leaving. This was my grandfather's cabin. It was my property, and I had every legal right to be there. Karen's face turned red. "You're refusing to cooperate?" "Yes," I replied. "I'm refusing to leave my own property." She stared at me for several seconds. Then she pulled out her phone. "Fine," she said. "I'll call the police." I watched her walk back toward her black SUV. A few seconds later, I heard her talking to 911. She told them that a man was trespassing on property that supposedly belonged to the HOA. She even claimed that I was refusing to leave after being ordered to do so. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I decided to let the sheriff handle it. About 15 minutes later, a white and black county sheriff SUV came up the gravel road. Sheriff Daniel Brooks stepped out. He was a calm, professional man who had worked in the county for years. Karen immediately rushed toward him. "Sheriff, thank goodness you're here." She pointed toward me. "He's trespassing. I've told him repeatedly that he needs to leave." Daniel listened patiently. Then he looked at me. "Sir, what's your side of the story?" I calmly explained everything. I told him about my grandfather. I told him about the cabin. And I told him that I owned the property. Daniel asked me if I had any proof. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folder. Inside were the original property deed, county records, and an old property survey. I handed the documents to him. Daniel began reading. At first, his expression was neutral. Then his eyebrows lifted. He looked at the survey again.